Okay.
All right, this is Marshall Conley. I'm a consultant with the Geneseo Public Library. Today is January 18th, thank you, 2018, and I'm at the Geneseo Public Library with Daniel Foulke. And so, that's how I pronounce your name, correct?
Yeah.
All right. And so, as I mentioned, we're going to start with some questions and conversation around your life and your early days. And so, we'll first talk about when and where were you born?
I was born in Sheffield, Illinois, on July 30th, 1936.
Okay. And you, in our earlier conversation, you mentioned you had moved around a little bit. Where else did you live in your younger days, school days when you were a boy?
First, I lived in Canton, Illinois, and I got my father worked in St. David, and when my father and mother moved up to Wyandotte, Illinois, and I got Perthes disease and was in a cast from here all the way down for 1 year.
Oh, wow.
I was at St. Francis Hospital for a year, and wore crutches for 2 years when I started school in Wyandotte.
Okay.
And then after 1 year of school in Wyandotte, my mother and father moved back to Canton.
Okay.
And I went to Canton Country School, Ben Franklin School till I graduated out of the 8th grade.
Oh, wow.
And then my mother and father separated when I was 12. And I lived with my aunt and uncle in Bryan, Illinois for a year till my mother got situated back in Wyandotte. She took the 3 younger children. There was 6 of us in the family, and I got a twin sister. And then mother took my twin sister and I and my brother Jack lived with my grandmother in a little town or place right near between St. David and Bryant, and lived with them for a year, with her for a year. And then mother come and got us, took us back to Wyandotte, and I started high school in Butte, Illinois.
Oh, okay.
We lived out in the country. And then we moved out of Butte, and then I went into Wyandotte High School. So I was a freshman, sophomore, and sophomore year in Wyandotte High School. 4 of us guys got together and we decided we was going to quit school and join the Army. So we did. My mother signed for me.
Wow.
So, and that.
And what year was that?
49.
49.
I
Okay.
quit school. And so we got sent up to Sheridan. We took Dearborn Street and took our physical, and then in Sheridan.
Yeah.
We went to Fort Leonard, Missouri for my Fort Leonard and 50th Combat Engineer in the second 8 weeks.
Okay.
First 6 weeks the infantry, and then they put me in engineers because basically from the time I was 12 years old, I lived in Wyandotte. My grandfather and my uncles were in construction.
Oh, okay.
My grandfather was a bricklayer, and he made blocks and done concrete work. So in the summertime when I'd get out of school, I would probably tin mason or pour concrete.
Okay.
So that's how I learned, and that's why I think the Army put me in engineers. So that was my qualifications. In fact, I think my first MOS in the Army was 3034. Mason.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that worked out.
So.
Yeah.
And then they sent me home on leave after basic. While I was home on leave, I got my orders to report to Fort Lawton. And that's in Seattle. And they processed me. I had orders to go to Korea. So we left left there and went on a boat to,
Yeah.
and they took us off at Camp Drake, issued us all new weapons, and I think I was the smallest one in the group, and I got a 30 caliber machine gun extra, and that thing was just covered with, I'll never forget, Cosmoline, the rifle too, but we zeroed our weapons, and then 3 days at Drake, they give us probably 14 shots, and then put us back on the ship. Took 3 more days to get back to Crete.
Okay.
So I got into Busan on August the 10th, 50.
Okay. Quite a path to that point. So, but we'll get a little bit more into that experience in a second. First, though, thinking back or going back again to you had a lot of description of family there. Was anybody else, siblings or parents or grandparents in the service?
I had 2 brothers in the Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
My brother Jack was cross-eyed and far-sighted, so they didn't take him.
Ah.
But
Okay.
in fact, my brother Gibb, my youngest brother, retired out of the Air Force
Okay.
Very
as
nice.
a senior master sergeant.
Yeah.
And then,
The other brother, he was at Salt Lake City,
okay.
and he was at Tinker.
Okay.
He was he fixed the bomb sights and the gun sights on the jets,
Mm-hmm.
and they'd fly him wherever they were needed repaired. He'd fly them all over the world.
Oh, wow.
Combat zones to
Yeah.
repair those planes.
Wow.
And he got out of service there.
Okay.
Then my son spent 4 years in the Air Force.
Okay.
He's now electronic engineer in Kansas City,
Okay.
and he took electronics and got his education at Biloxi, Mississippi.
Okay.
And he was in Greece on the mountain over there in a radar station.
Oh, wow.
So
He saw some.
that's where he got his education.
Yeah.
I was going to send him down to Bradley for college,
Mm-hmm.
but he said, no, Dad, I'm going to join the Air Force. I want to go to electronics.
All right.
That's what he did.
Sounds like a great decision.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, talk a little bit about your decision to join the Army. What was your motivation? What made you think that was the thing you wanted to do?
Well, I had uncles, a lot of uncles that were in World War II,
Mm-hmm.
and cousins, and their sons, their children, in fact, Danny Green, he was at Pearl Harbor, World War II, and Gilbert Green was with Patton in Belgium.
Yeah.
He was a medic.
Oh, wow. In the Battle of the Bulge?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And then I had another uncle in the Seabees in the Pacific,
Mhm.
and so that kind
Runs
of,
in the
Makes
family.
sense, yeah.
Huh?
It runs in the family.
Yeah, you know how it is.
Yeah. So what made you pick the Army? Why of the branches? What made you decide on the Army?
I didn't. I just went up there and they put me in the Army.
Oh, okay.
And I joined the Army.
Okay.
Actually, but I did throw it through the selective service. I asked
Okay.
for the Army, so
Yeah, okay.
that's where they put me.
Okay.
I didn't try to get in.
Mm.
A lot of them like to get in the Navy or the Air Force. They don't want to get in that Army. Round pounders.
Yeah. All right. And when you did that, what did you think it was going to be like? What were your expectations? I mean, you talked about you had a lot of family that had served. So was it a surprise when you joined what it was like, or
Nope.
no?
Pretty well knew what it was about.
Yep.
Yep. And I always thought I'd work, serve my country,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted to do it. So,
Okay.
but it was a good learning experience.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
And then you had mentioned in passing some information on your ranks. So what rank were you when you first entered?
I was a private.
Private. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And you had said you did infantry training first.
Yeah, you
And-
do, that's basic training.
Yeah, basic,
6 to 8
yeah.
weeks, you know.
Yeah.
And then they give you 8 weeks more of whatever you're going, MOS,
your
whatever
engineering,
MOS you're gonna give you.
Yep.
Like, I was in combat engineer,
Yep.
so.
And then you said your mother had signed off. So was she? How did she feel about your decision?
Well, once again, that's another thing. My 2 cousins, their mother and father, their father got killed on a train by Mendota, coming home on one of them little cars.
Yeah.
The train overran him, and her mother died. Their mother died, so mother raised them.
Mm.
And that was Billy and Dan, Gilbert.
Yeah.
And they pretty well, you know, went through hell in
Yeah.
World War II, you know. So that's basically how I got nominated for the Army.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. Okay. And you said your first went to training in Fort Loudon.
No,
Or
no.
that was after basic. Where was your first Fort Lebanon in Missouri? Is that the fort where you went in Missouri for
Well,
basic?
No, I went, Leonardwood,
Yeah, Letterman. Okay.
the 5th Army.
Yeah.
They sent us out to Sheridan for 2 weeks
Yeah,
while they
that's
processed us, and then
Okay.
they sent us to basic training. I'm the only one out of the 4 went to Korea. The rest of them went all to
Oh,
Korea.
okay.
None of them went to Korea.
Okay. So, when you got into your assignment, you were going to be a combat engineer. So you had some experience, you mentioned, in construction and concrete. And so what kind of stuff did you do in training? What was training like?
Well, engineer training, combat engineer training, you were taught mine warfare, clearing and laying mines, map reading, bridge construction, and like Bailey bridges and one. Well, that's a quick way to, and demolition,
Okay.
and building, not building, but road construction.
Yeah, general.
Because the basic duties of a combat engineer is to keep all the supply routes open for the infantry so that they can get ammunition, supplies, or whatever needed, make places for the armor to cross if the bridge won't hold them, and replace the spans in the bridges that the enemy blow while you're pushing them forward, or when you're blowing them yourself and you come back, and then like Korea, we went 3 times up and back, so we had a lot of bridge. In fact, I worked on a lot of bridges.
Interesting. And do you remember any of your instructors or any of the folks you worked with in training? Yeah. And so, in training, you're adapting to military life. You said, you kind of knew what to expect coming in. So, what was the most difficult part about your, adapting to the military, or your, the changes you experienced from the life you had before to what was going on now?
The first thing you got to do when you go into service, you learn to take orders. That's the main thing. You don't say no, and they always say don't volunteer, but I volunteered. I never seem to have any problem with that. But you learn to, adjust. It's a different life.
Yeah. Sure.
But I had no trouble with that part of it.
Okay.
No.
All right. So after you were in Seattle, that's when you went to Korea, and so what was the first your first experience like after you got to Korea and you got all your gear and training and all that? What was your first experience like? Being there.
I wondered what the heck. I was doing there. You know, and you're scared.
Mm-hmm.
No, anybody that gets off that shift going into a combat zone is wondering what's going to happen and where you're going to be. You know, that's all in your mind. But once you get there, you take it day per day.
Yeah.
What happens, happens. And you pray to God that you're there the next day. That's all. You know.
Wow.
And seen quite a few things.
Yeah, I bet.
I was assigned to the 1st Cavalry Division, 8th Combat Engineers. And our job was like I told you.
Mm-hmm.
Our job was clear mines, lay mines, build roads, and do whatever it took to keep the frontline troops supplied or whatever they needed us to do, either repair a bridge, blow a bridge, or
Mm-hmm.
that's their job. In fact, when I got to Korea, it was just a Pusan perimeter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 24th Division were the first ones there out of Japan. Then the 1st Cav come in. I think they got there in June. They got there right after the group. He brought them out of there, and they were third under. There were only 11,000 of them. They were about a third under strength. So when we come into, I got assigned to them. I was put in 8 combat engineers and 8 company. And when the Pusan perimeter was out, they put the 5th, 7th, and 8th regiments of the cavalry out to protect on that river right there out front. But they were spread out so far between the infantry regiments, that the North Koreans were coming around in behind them through the openings. So,
Oh, wow.
So they took the 3 companies of the 8th Combat Engineers and placed us in between them, and we became infantry.
Oh.
I was put on a 30 caliber machine gun. This happened until they landed in Incheon, and they cut them off.
Yeah.
All the way across, and they trapped all of the North Koreans. Some got out on the east side before they could get over and close it off. So then that's when we got all of the different countries come in to help us, and we got all of the infantry divisions from the United States and National Guard units like the 3rd Armored Division and the 3rd Infantry Division, not the Armored Division, but 3rd Infantry and the 45th and all 7th Division. In fact, the 7th Division landed with the Marines when they went into the Incheon.
Mm-hmm.
And then once they got that, then we started pushing north. When we had the 1st Marines on our left flank, some of them, and then we started pushing north. We pushed all the way up, and they captured and killed either captured or killed all of the ones that, and so went all the way up to the Yalu River, little old town of. I was sent out after they went through Pyongyang. The 7th Cavs went Pyongyang, the 1st Americans, and then the 8th Cav had been sent up within about 3 miles from the Yellow River, and there was a kind of a bridge over a stream or river up there. So they got a hold of our company, and they sent our company, or part of our company up there, to wire a bridge in case the North Koreans ever made a push, we could blow the bridge. And while we were there and didn't get out of there, the Chinese surrounded us. I'll never forget, about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, they hit us from every direction. And the 5th Cav was back here in blocking, and about, I'd say, it was probably 20 kilometers. between us and them.
Mm-hmm.
North Chinese Sahara sealed us off. They'd hit us and really hit us early in the morning and then let up about 9 o'clock and then start up again.
Huh.
You know, they'd take a break, we'd take a break. But, you
Yeah.
know,
Oh wow.
and then MacArthur said, before we went up to MacArthur's, we'd all be home for Christmas.
Yeah.
So we had no winter gear. All we had was fatigues and maybe a field jacket, but it got so damn cold,
Oh,
and so we'd stuff sandbags down inside of our clothing and make a hood over eyes, mouth on a sandbag, put it on, helmet on, any way to
yeah. Use what you have.
wrap our feet with snow bags, because all we had, when we were up there, the fatigues we had on, one set in our field pack, and 2 sets of boots, one you had on, one up. That was it. It got damn cold, and I'll tell you just how cold it was. They give you food, or we put our sea rations in the back of tanks on the manifolds and water cans to keep them, and then we get them out and eat them. You had 5 minutes to eat them, or they'd be full solid.
Huh.
Oh, jeez.
And you didn't touch nothing metal,
Oh,
and couldn't shut the vehicles off. Even the tanks, no vehicles could be shut off because they never start again.
yeah.
And we ran out of fuel. They were trying to airlift it in and drop it. They're supposed to drop us. They're supposed to drop us foul cold weather gear. I'll never forget them. Some of the guys went out to get it. They had Tabasco sauce. Cases of Tabasco
Oh,
sauce.
jeez. So expecting to get the gear, and it's just hot sauce.
But we survived.
Yeah.
But they had to fight our way back down to the 5th Regiment, 5th Cav. We couldn't get over to the Marines where they were over over on the other side, got surrounded,
No.
along with members, some of them of the 7th Division. And but basically, it took us about 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks to fight our way out of that. And we started out with 11 tanks and a whole bunch of jeeps and trucks and we lost. The 8th Cav lost about 1,300 men or more in 3 days. And I was put on a 30 caliber machine gun again because they knew.
Yeah.
And got down to this last real little river before we could get back to our own unit, back to the 5th. We only had 1 tank left. 1 tank. No vehicles. And so the master sergeant that was in charge of that tank, he was tank commander, he said, I want you men to break down into groups of 20, what there was left of us. And you sleep at night, or in the daytime, and move at night, and work your way back. So that's what we did. And I'm one of 14 out of 20 that survived it. I'm going to say something here, and I don't want you to write it down.
Okay.
Okay?
You don't?
Nope. I was wounded 3 times in Korea. First time I got shot, I think it was a stray bullet hit something, ricochet through here, and the medic took it out, wrapped it up. We had only a corporal medic's all we had.
Okay.
So he took care of that. And then the Chinese overran our position about 4 o'clock in the morning. And we had 1 sleeping bag for 3 men. 2 were supposed to stay alive. So I was the gunner, I was sleeping in the hole in the bag. And I heard my gunner holler. And as I looked up, the Chinese was sticking a bayonet down in the hole. So I rolled over and he stuck the bayonet here back of my leg, and I had a 44 pistol. I always slept with it laying over my chest. And I thought, he's not going to bayonet nobody else.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I got a big bayonet scar here, but it didn't hit any of the arteries or anything. I was lucky.
Yeah.
And so the medic, he just wrapped it up. No place to go, keep fighting, you know. And then afterwards, after we got back off of the line, after we got back to the 5th Regiment, another sergeant and I were clearing mines for infantry footpaths going out through the wire. Every night they'd go out. Before they come back in, then the Chinese in North Korea would put them shoe mines. And all they want to do is blow their legs off, because it takes 7 men to take care of an injured. So we was out there clearing them, trying to find them shoe box. And a mortar round come in and killed my best friend right in front of me, sergeant. And I got hit in the shrapnel in the groin. So the Marine helicopter picked me up and took me to their aid station along with another Marine with his arm blown off. And they got us to station. Then they brought another chopper in, took us down to Young Pole, the 121st of Act. And then that's where I went down to Taegu and was in there, and they took the shrapnel out of me. And that was the end of my frontline duty in the cavalry. So when I come out of the cab, now you can start up. Anyway, I was in the hospital at Taegu. And when I got out, they said, we're not going to send you back up on the line. The first cab had already went back to Japan, what was left of them. Mm-hmm. You can either go over there, or you can stay here and go home from here. So I said, I'll stay here. So they put me in the 76 Construction Engineers, which is... And so I only had about 3 months left before I was a 2-year draftee.
Okay.
So I got over there in the 76 Engineers, and I liked that. We went, first place we went and built that rock training camp, and then they sent me down, and I was getting ready to go home, and the captain called me in. He talked me into volunteer to stay in the Army for 2 more years. So
you built all that.
So I stayed in Korea till October of '53. We built a rock training, training camp, but I was a PFC because I never got a chance to get promoted all during that other deal, But I got into the engineer. 30 days I made corporal. 30 days later I made sergeant. I came home as a sergeant E5.
Wow.
But we built that base camp. Then they sent us down to Sungyung-ni, and it was a Korean cemetery. See, all of them they're wrapped in cheesecloth and put in wooden, that softwood stuff, and they build mounds. And they're all sitting with them rubber shoes they wear, and their chopsticks and their bowl right here.
Wow. And
they're just covered up, set up like that. So we went in, and they give the village of Sungyung-ni 2 weeks to move the bodies out. Then we just took dozers in and built the prisoner of war camp right on.
Right.
But there was one old mama son down there on the end. She wouldn't come out of the house she lived in. So they had to go down and remove her in the tank, and the dozer just, I'll never forget that poor woman. But it was something to work to.
Yeah.
But those those prisoners could make anything out of beer cans.
Really?
Make cigarette lighters, cigarette cases. You give it to them, they just make anything.
Wow.
They were good, and they were glad to be in that prisoner war camp. I only had run into one bad prisoner. We were digging a ditch, and he swung a D-hand shovel at me because he didn't want to work. He's one of those guys that I had bolly at him, and he swung a D-hand shovel at me. I won't tell you what I did, but anyway, I got took off of that detail for it.
Oh my.
But anyway.
Yeah.
But anyway, then we left there and went to Yongdung Po. Our headquarters was in Yongdung Po, 76 Construction Engineers. They had an old beer factory there in Yongdung Po. So quartermaster, we went down there and remodeled all those buildings at that beer factory, and I used Katyushas, and we poured repaired the buildings and poured new floors in them, and then we built big buildings at the airstrips and wherever they need them.
Yeah.
Spent my time there, and then from there, then I left there. I was called by my company commander, set me up on the front line with the 71st Smoke Generator Company to help them build 5 bunkers for smoke generators, me and Corporal Lajinsky. And also, they were the headquarters of the company. The headquarters company was behind the mountain, just off behind the lines. They wanted us to put up 2 tropical shells for them. He would furnish us men from their unit, and Lajinsky and I would show them, and them kits, they come in kits, you know. Tropical ship, they're 50 foot long, 150 foot long and 50 feet wide. And then we got one of them built, and then they sent KSCs, that's 4Fers in South Korea that can't they wouldn't put in the Army.
Okay.
Up there to mix concrete. We poured the floors in. I finished the floors in one building when we had the other one built up but no floors in it yet. And then they called me back. Back to Yongdung Po, and they sent our company up behind the 24th Division. We were set up about a quarter of a mile back of the 24th Division off the MLR, the main line of resistance. And our job was to go out and build a prisoner war track. So we had there's an old railroad track for the end of the line up there as far as it went. From there out, we had to repair that bridge, go out there. We had to clear a strip 2 miles long and a half mile wide. First thing that we did after we got out there was sprayed it and burn it off. Then we had to go in and clear all of the anti-personnel lines we could see by hand. And then they took a tank in with a roller on the front of it with chains hitting the ground, setting off the anti-tank mines. Then we sent our dozers in and pushed about 6 inches of dirt each way. And we're still setting off mines. But at the same time, the North Koreans had to do the same thing over on their side.
Sure.
But they weren't building no camp. So after that, we got that done when we started building the camp. My job was building, I had my 50 Katyushas building the compound for the prisoner, North Korean prisoners coming back, and the Chinese prisoners coming back up. And also we had to build living quarters for the Indians because they were the nation that come in that were, they weren't not related to the war.
Okay.
So the UN sent them in, and they're the one that handled all the prisoner exchange.
Ah, okay.
So we had to build tent frames set up for them, and latrines and and taught that for him to cook and everything.
Wow.
And then after that was done, and the sea fire on the 25th of July, I got to stand on that old dusty road. I'll never forget it. And watch them first American prisoners come down that road. It brought tears in my eyes to see how the condition of how they looked. And I don't think they'd wave back at me, and I don't think they hardly could believe that they were being sent back. Then they send them back to that free game village and process them. But we stayed in that area until I went home from there in October of '53. Then I went back to the States, got home for 30 days leave, hung my uniform in the closet because people didn't give us no respect. There was a conflict, and they were tired of World War II, I think. So after Walls went through a daily woman, I went to Fort in Colorado, by Denver.
Oh.
No, by Carson City.
Oh. I'm drawing a blank too.
My God, my mind's going blank.
I'll find
We'll figure it out.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I'll think of it here in a second. But anyway, I went up there and waiting to be discharged. And so while I was waiting to discharge, they sent us up to Rifle, Colorado for mountain, cold weather mountain training. Put me on a set of skis, set me down over the hill. I knocked down full field packed on the rifle. I knocked down more damn little Christmas trees coming down. And when they hit the bottom, the major, there's no snow. I just right out my head. The major was laughing at me and he said, "What's the matter, Sergeant?" I said, when's the next truck going back to camp? And he said, "This afternoon." Why? Put me on, I'm going to go re-enlist. So I went back and re-enlisted for 3 years, for 6 years, and re-enlisted for the Far East. So they sent me to Japan. I come back to Fort Sheridan, waited there, and then went to Lawton, went back to Japan. I spent 3 years in the 43rd Engineers. I met my wife and got married in Japan to a Japanese girl, Kimi Umezawa. And both my children were born in Japan. And then after I brought her back to the station in '57, stationed at Fort Riley, Kansas, 1st Division. They decided they didn't have no use for, I got promoted to E7 in Japan, Sergeant First Class.
Yep.
And they had no jobs for engineers because civilians all do it, and they only use one master sergeant as post engineer. That post engineer. So they said, "We're going to retrain you. I'm going to send you down to the 4th Cavalry, 4th Cav of the 1st Division. We're going to make you a tank commander." Oh, I said to him, "I don't want nothing to do with tanks. I seen what happened in Korea with tanks." But anyway, they sent me down there and got there, and they said, because I've always been an engineer, operations sergeant, and first sergeant in Japan. And so they sent me down there and said, I said, "Could you make me a operations sergeant for the?" We got 3 of them. Don't need them. So he sent me over to the B company of the 4th Cav troop. And I walked in and He said, they're sending you down here to be a tank commander, but I got them coming out my ears from World War II in Korea. He said, I need scout section leaders. So I became a scout section leader. And we trained 2 groups of trainees, second 8 weeks of scouts. So I taught mine warfare, demolitions, map reading, bridge capacity, and military courtesy. All engineer subjects.
Yeah.
Got along fine with them. And so then they sent me from there. After my tour duty was up there at the 1st Cav, I re-enlisted, and they sent me to Germany. 3rd Armored Division, 12th Cav, Scout Section Leader. I came home from there and got out of the Army. The reason I did, while I was over there, my wife and 2 children had orders to go to Dix to come over. But Kennedy stopped all families going to Europe because of Berlin crisis or something. So I got to spend my tour duty in in Germany with no
family.
So I was put on border patrol.
Okay.
12-man scout section. And so when I came home, my 2 children didn't even know me. So that's my reason for getting out of the Army. So I basically put about 12 years in the Army. So altogether.
It was an impressive career. Yeah.
Okay. That's it.
And then, what did you do after that?
I first couldn't get. I helped a farmer first, pick corn.
Sure.
And couldn't get a job, and my aunt got me a job in Preston, Illinois, working in a factory, big lighters and things for electric stoves. Well, that's piecework, and I sat in and I hated it because I like construction. My brother worked as a superintendent or a foreman for a plumbing outfit in Ottawa, Illinois, and at that time they were starting to build Interstate 80. And he knew the cement finisher business agent in Ottawa, and he asked my brother Jack, "You know anybody knows how to finish concrete?" My brother said, "Yeah, I got just the right person for you." So I went there and I finished concrete for 32 years. I retired in '94. And I worked in Sheffield. I lived in Sheffield. I trained horses for about 30 years. Harness horses, raced them at Moline and Chicago.
Sure.
And I was 3 times on the board in Sheffield. I was 12 years on the volunteer rescue squad. And I belonged to FEMA for 28 years, and I was the editor director for the village Sheffield for about 20 years.
Wow.
So I think I did my part.
Yeah.
And now I'm belonging to Korean chapter, going out trying to teach the children and what the Korean War is all about. I'm 85 years old.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Getting around.
Yeah, so we about need to wrap up. So if there's one last message or one last reflection you'd like to share, you'd like people to know about your experience, about what you think about military service overall, what would that be?
Well, you read the papers every day. The Army is how they reduced their service. And right now, I got my best friend is a sergeant major. He just come from Fort Hood, Texas. He'd been in Kuwait. He's a sergeant major. He was the first sergeant of the First Army out here, and then he went down and he went to El Paso, and then they got out of there, and they sent him to Kuwait. Now he came back, and he tried to get back to the arsenal. He got back. He's going to be stationed in the arsenal and get out, and he'll be at 30 years after 2 years. He's going to be the step command. So tonight he's getting installed back in the Masons that I helped put him in when he was here, when he was in the when he was on the First Army.
Wow.
So that's why I'm going out there.
That's great.
So
Great.
but yep.
Okay.
Is that enough?
Yeah, I think we're good. Thank you very much. That was